KCNX PK52, the Saturday morning meeting. Hey, the third phase of Operation Possible. This is phase one, but the third session. And what we've talked about in the beginning is be aware of your environment. Know what kind of car they drove in, whether they're by themselves, whether they got a ring on their finger. And then we started, just questioning the customer and open-ended questions. So what I'd like to do is just kind of continue on that train of thought. And let me just kind of take a second. Try this at home. There's a lot of people out there that are married, some a short period of time, some a long period of time. I got to tell you, in a marriage, listening skills become very important. I mean, you might listen to everybody at work. You listen to your boss, listen to your supervisor. But when you go home and everything, man, it's hard to listen to your spouse. And probably should be reversed. Probably shouldn't listen to your supervisor and boss as much as you should listen to your spouse, and then the marriage will last a long time and everything will be fantastic. So the whole Socrates, the Socratic move, before you assume you know what your spouse is talking about, or your significant other, or the first time you've gone on a date, before you assume you know what they're talking about, just parrot everything back. They said, you know what, I'd really like to see a movie tonight. I said, so you'd like to see a movie tonight? Tell me more. Like to see a movie tonight, I sense this is pretty important to you. Tell me about the movie. But make sure that you understand what the conversation's about. I know that might not have been the strongest example in the world, but I got to tell you, if you pause for a second to make sure that you're hearing exactly what they're saying, two things happen. One thing is, it keeps you from making a mistake. Second thing is, you're actually giving back that information to the customer, which lets them know that you're really paying attention, and people feel good when they hear their own words or they know somebody's paying attention to what they're saying. So, I don't know, that's 2 for 2. Might as well try it. So I will say right here, my opinion matters not. That's kind of a pledge. My right hand goes up, my opinion matters not. Because honestly, in a car situation, I'm selling the car. I'm representing the dealership. They're buying the car. So without their money or their credit, it doesn't matter how great I am as a salesperson, they're the one that's going to make the final decision whether they're going to take the car or not. So really, my opinion becomes second nature to their opinion because they're the ones that are actually making the purchase. Customer's always right. You've heard a million of those acronyms. Leading questions don't work. I mean, I had a guy tell me one time, and this is honest. He says that the best thing you can do in selling anything, the absolute no lose, is to get a customer to say yes. That's it. That's all it takes. If I can get the customer to say yes, then I'm going to sell the product I'm selling. Would you prefer to live if you have a front end collision? Yes. Obviously, I've just sold a car. So that's nonsense. I mean, you definitely want the customer to agree, but the easiest way to get the customer to agree is to say what they already said, to talk like they're already talking, to talk about the subject that they want to focus on. You're not the main player here. The buyer's the main player. Your job is to sell something. It's to get them to come to an agreement. The antagonistic things, by telling somebody or trying to lead somebody, there are some people that will just walk away. And I was always told, build common ground. Build common ground. So, I've seen a bunch of pictures and everything on the desk of your kid's soccer team, and your kid is the greatest soccer player in the history of the world. I mean, let's say that's not just a joke. Let's say they're really, really good. And you want to build common ground with the customer and said, I know you have kids, so they play soccer. Oh, yeah, my kid plays soccer. Yeah, my kid was on the All-Stars last year. We had a traveling deal. We won the national champ. See, the problem with trying to build common ground is, as a salesperson, we're the greatest one-up people in the world. If you will tell us a story, we will come back and tell you a story and try to one-up your story. It's just a natural thing. And we don't even get mad at each other at the dealership, salesperson to salesperson, when we do that, because we expect each other to do it. Because we're creative. We're creative with our language. We're creative with our stories. The cool thing about it is, if you really take pause for a second, the most important story that you can have a conversation about is the customer story. Their kid's soccer, their car, their trip, what they're going to do with their truck. That's how you build common ground, being completely complicit in their story. Think about that a minute. And think about the last 4 or 5 customers you had, how many times you completely took over the conversation and started focusing on the agenda that you were comfortable in. You know, sometimes I think people buy cars from us because they really don't have a choice. Because virtually every dealership treats them exactly the same way. So they really want a car. They want a car so bad that they'll allow us to treat them any way we can. So what I'm saying is, what are the secrets of these salespeople out there selling 30, 40, and 50 cars a month? I promise you it's not the road to the sale. I promise you they're not telling a customer what to buy. They're great listeners. And they listen to what the customer says, and they just use the words of the customer to move them forward in the sales process. Remember, the customer came to buy a car. They may not have had that on their agenda for today, that they were going to buy today, but they're really looking for a car, truck, SUV, van, whatever. They're looking to buy something, or they wouldn't be with you. So the common ground thing is, yeah, build common ground as long as it's their common ground. How does that sound? Most salespeople take control of an opportunity by telling a customer about the product, the dealership, and anything that may or may not apply. My statement to you is, tell does not equal sell. Stop, listen, and if possible, play back the customer's words so they know that you heard them. There are a group of questions that I really like. It takes a lot of practice. It takes a lot of practice for these to sound natural. But if you truly care about what the customer is trying to accomplish, that makes this so much easier. My favorite one is, what's most important to you? What's most important to you? Before we get started, tell me what's going to be most important to you. Stop a second, listen to them, and once they say something like, you know, I'm going to keep this car for a long time, so I think dependability. So immediately, if we're talking about the same thing, the Socratic format, I'll come back and say dependability. Now that means a lot of things to a lot of people. What does it mean to you? In the next few seconds, you're going to find out exactly what they mean about dependability. So, I don't know, 15, 20 minutes from now when you're doing a presentation of the car, a little walk around, you probably start that conversation with, earlier you said, I believe you said, if I'm not wrong, I think you said. And the greatest closing statement in the history of the world is going to be, you said, because they did say it. A lot of you think that's manipulation. I think it's good listening skills, and I'm going to talk about the things that they've already decided that they'll spend money on. Seems like a brilliant move. Let's go through a little series here. Let's say they're actually on the lot, toughest customer to approach. So they're already looking at a car. Let's say the cars are unlocked, the doors were open, maybe they've been in the car, and now you're walking up there. And you don't want to say, how can I help you? So it's pretty obvious, if they're looking at a Tacoma, they're actually looking at a Tacoma. So I see you guys selected a Tacoma. I always like to know, how come you're looking at a Tacoma? And then I want to hear something like, I've got a friend, somebody at work, I had one in the past. You know, I want to find out why they've made a selection about Tacoma. And then, you know, I'm even ask them, I said, well, you know, now you found a truck that you're interested in. How come you came to our store? Why did you select our dealership? Not necessary, but it's a question I want to talk about. How come you select that? Well, I live about 5 miles away. This will be the dealership where I'll be doing my service. I've got a friend that bought a car from you. Man, you got to make sure you don't mess that one up. You've got a referral that you didn't know was coming. Somebody has sent this person to the dealership because of the way they were treated. You got to make sure that the first time you talk to your manager today, you say, hey, this was a referral that I didn't know I was going to get, but they're here because somebody bought a car and sent them to our store. The two things we want to focus on we talked about last week. Number one is, have you had a chance to drive the Tacoma? If the customer says, no, I have not, your immediate thought is, grab the keys, let's go for a ride. And I'm telling you, you do not have to be in a hurry now. You do not have to be in a hurry now. You can do it on the customer's time. So if they say, I haven't driven it yet, I said, that's interesting. So you haven't actually driven the truck. What have you heard about it? Check that out. What have you heard about it? And then shut up. Well, I've heard that they're the number one selling truck. I've heard they have a great resale value. These are things that you were going to say. Wouldn't it be better if you paused enough and let the customer say it? Let's go the other way. Have you had a chance to drive the Tacoma? And they say yes. So immediately you're thinking, uh-oh, I got competition. They've been to another dealership. Maybe, maybe not. But that's okay. Let's act like that's the worst case scenario. They've already been to another dealership. They've already got numbers. So after they say, I've already driven it, that the obvious thing to do right now is, that's awesome. What did you like most? What have you heard? Or what did you like most? Those are the two answers that will make the customer talk. It's like giving it back to them and letting them talk. What did you like most? I said, I really liked the way the truck rode. It was very comfortable for a truck. That's something you might not have brought up. That's kind of shocking because, they're going to say it's powerful, it's rugged, four-wheel drive's awesome. They talk to you about how great the truck rode on the road. So that leads me to believe a little bit later on the conversation may be a little different than the last truck presentation I had. In order to keep the conversation going, and we'll try to keep this one short. My videos are getting longer and longer, and I apologize for that. But I'm trying to give you guys some meat. But when I give you something, don't act like it's the only thing in the world that's right. All these trainers out there, they have a technique, and they will say, just do this technique, and you know that I don't believe that. What I'm saying is, listen to it and make it your own. Once you started the customer talking, if they quit talking, look at them and just go, tell me more. Facial expressions, tell me more. And the four-wheel drive is going to be important to me. So whatever they say, it doesn't matter, but tell me more continues the conversation. Not our conversation, their conversation. Remember, the more they talk, the better off we're going to be. The majority of salespeople out there that are selling average number of cars or less, listen to them with a customer. What they do is they completely dominate the conversation, and then they wonder why I told the customer everything they needed to know. I don't know why they didn't buy. Well, wait a minute. Wasn't it the customer's time and the customer's money? Tell me more. I love the symbol and. You look at somebody in kind of with a questioning look and go, and they'll start talking again. A lot of times when you have a couple, one of them hadn't talked at all, you can just kind of look over at the other one and go, and then now the spouse is jumped in or the partner's jumped in, and now we got them both talking. And, I really wanted leather. We talked about that. I don't want leather. Hey, this is a good conversation to get into right here, because now if they can't make a decision on exactly what they want on the vehicle, you got nothing today. So dropping the and on the second customer that hadn't talked, it's a pretty good technique. Could try it. Tell me more. And, for example, so the customer says, I'm really interested in durability. And you look at them and go, for example? Well, I live on a ranch, and the last mile to my house is unpaved. And so I want to make sure, and that's good to know. There's a million things going through your mind right now about the way I'm going to handle my presentation in a few minutes, but it's going to be based upon how they're going to actually use the vehicle. So this is going to be some really good learning techniques. And it's kind of funny because it's learning how to shut up. It's learning how to let the customer take control with their conversation so we know exactly what we're doing and what their objective is. Tell me more. And, for example, I like the things like this. I sense this means a lot to you. Can you expand on that, or can you tell me more? I sense this means a lot. I sense frustration. You can tell they've been to a couple other dealerships. They don't really want to talk to you. They're closing off on you. I don't know why you wouldn't say that. Listen, I sense a little frustration. Tell me what's going on. I've already been to 4 or 5 dealerships. They're not giving me enough for my car. Whatever. But all of these conversations will never come up if you're trying to take control of the conversation. So look, here's what's been told for years to all of us. The meet and greet, the counsel and qualify, the presentation, the demonstration drive, the series of trial closing questions, and then asking for the business. And then when all that fails, bring a second face in so they can start all over with a customer. I'm telling you that the top salespeople in the United States, no matter what brand they're selling, aren't using the road to the sale unless it fits for the customer. What they're doing is they're listening to the customer, and they're finding out exactly where the customer is, and they're living within that moment with the customer, because it is not the car business. It's the people business. Try this at home. Try this with your families. And parents, man, we go right at our kids. And sometimes you might want to find out, maybe it was a knucklehead move. Maybe they shouldn't have done it. But maybe we should have said, so I understand that this happened. Tell me exactly, give me an example of what you were thinking. Tell me more, and tell me more. Give me an example. I sense this means a lot to you, so explain to me why you did this. And listen before you make a decision. Your decisions will always be better. PK52, the Saturday morning meeting.